So it's been about 1.5 years since I did my last video about making Windows more private. So it's probably about time that we revisit this topic, especially since a few things have changed. Stay tuned. With Windows 10 losing support in just a few months, the biggest argument that I've heard people make about not wanting to move to Windows 11 is that Windows 11 spies on you. The problem is, so does Windows 10. In fact, the telemetry they collect is pretty much the same. In fact, Microsoft's move from a software company to a telemetry company started with Windows 10. So if your goal is to have an operating system that doesn't watch everything we do, staying on Windows 10 isn't the answer. And considering Windows 10 is losing support soon, I also don't want every script kiddie on the internet having access to my data either. So that means we need to make Windows 11 private. And that's what we're going to be doing today. But first, I got to pay some bills. So check out today's sponsor. Are you still running Windows 11 unactivated because the license just costs too much? Then you should check out today's sponsor, VIP SCD Key, where you can get a valid Windows 11 license for around $20. Stop dealing with that stupid watermark and actually be able to change your desktop background with a valid license for Windows 11. Just go to the link in the description below and pick up a valid Windows 11 license key. During checkout, use the code CYBERCPU for a 25% discount. Once you have your key, go to your activation settings in Windows 11 and click the link that says Change Product Key. Enter the product key you just purchased and hit Activate. Now you don't have to deal with that stupid watermark. And check out the description for deals on not just Windows, but Office too. Now, on with the video. Now, based on that intro, I'm sure the Linux users are going to jump in the comments and say that we should all switch to Linux. But I want to be able to run my programs too. For that, we need to make Windows private, and that's definitely doable. In fact, the majority of it is simply going to be changing settings from within Windows. However, we are going to be doing some more advanced stuff too. For this, many people rely on programs or scripts to disable or secure privacy in Windows. However, I don't like going that route for a couple of reasons. And for one, the majority of these scripts are kind of a one-size-fits-all solution that doesn't really fit everyone. And for two, lots of these scripts can cause problems in Windows that are extremely hard to diagnose and fix. By doing this manually, it takes a little bit more time, but you will know exactly which settings you've changed, and if there are any problems down the line, it's kind of easy to backtrack and change settings back. Running a debloat script or a privacy program can sometimes be irreversible. There have been more than once where I've had to just give up and reload Windows because of problems caused by debloat scripts and programs. So because of that, I try to avoid them as much as I can. Furthermore, by doing this manually, you get a better understanding of what you're doing. So then if problems do arise later on, then you can use that understanding to fix those problems. So it's kind of a win-win. So with that said, let's jump on the system and I'll show you what to do. Okay, so here we are in Windows 11, and the first thing that I'm going to recommend, and I've recommended this in every one of my privacy videos up to this point, is to not use a Microsoft account. However, in my previous videos, I always make that statement, but don't show people how to revert back to a local account if they're already signed into a Microsoft account. So I typically always get comments about how to do this. So what I'm going to do in this video is I kind of took one for the team and went ahead and logged my system into a Microsoft account just so I can show you how to log out of it. So to do that, go into Settings, click on Accounts. And then from Accounts, as you can see, we are logged into a Microsoft account. You want to go down into Your Info right here. And then from here, you can see right here this link that says sign in with a local account instead. If you click on that, it's going to come up with this screen right here that has your Microsoft account email address and username. You're going to go ahead and hit next. You're going to type in your PIN, or you could also use your password as well. I'm going to go ahead and type in my PIN here, and it's going to ask you for your local account information. So you go ahead and fill out a new password, a password hint, and then hit next. I went ahead and did mine without a password. That's fine if you want to do it that way. However, I do recommend using a password. And then in order to finish, all you have to do is click sign out to finish. And it's going to take a minute to sign out. And then once we do, you can go ahead and sign right back in. And now that you're back in Windows, you should be on a local account now. So to verify that, we're going to go ahead and click on Start, go to Settings. And as you can see right here, it says we are definitely using a local account. So I think this is one of the most critical steps in protecting your privacy in Windows 11 is using a local account. I mean, just changing this alone isn't going to stop your data from being sent to Microsoft, but it does make it harder for Microsoft to tie your data to, well, you. It also automatically disables some features from within Windows that violate your information and data privacy. And we'll go ahead and go through those as we go through them. So let's jump back in the system and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so now that we're already in settings, we're gonna go ahead and click down on privacy and security here. And then we'll just start out at the very top. We have Find My Device. Now, if you click on this, as you can see, we need to be logged on to a Microsoft account for this feature to work. Since we're not, well, it just simply doesn't work. So this is one of those instances where being on a local account automatically makes your Windows install more private. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and back up into privacy and security, and we'll go ahead and start in general here. Now, from the general window, I would recommend turning all of these off here. Let apps show me personal ads? No. Let websites show me local relevant content? Nah, we'll turn that off too. Let Windows improve start and search results? No. And show me suggested content? Nope. And show me notifications in the settings app? And we'll say no to that one too. So from there, we're going to back up, back into privacy and security. And then we'll go ahead and go into speech. And then from this one, should be disabled by default. And if it's off for you, then we can go ahead and skip on to the next step. But if it's not, then I would suggest turning it off. So we're going to go ahead and jump back into privacy and security. And we'll click on inking and typing personalization. And for this one, all you have to do is just flip it off. And then you can go into your custom dictionary and then clear your custom dictionary right here just by hitting the clear button. And then we can go ahead and back up again, back into privacy and security. And then for this one, we're going to jump into diagnostic and feedback. Now, there's a lot of settings in here, so we're going to spend a second in this one right here. Now, the first one, obviously, we're going to go ahead and disable send optional diagnostic data. That's a given right there. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and change the feedback frequency from automatically to never. And then from there, we can also go up and we can hit delete diagnostic data. By hitting the delete button, it goes ahead and deletes it. And then finally, if we go up right here to where it says tailored experiences, we can go ahead and turn that off also. And unfortunately, at this point, if you're using Windows 11 Home, this is all you can do. You can't make any more changes, and unfortunately, you can't disable the sending of required data. But if you're using Windows 11 Pro, you absolutely can. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and click on the Start button. We're going to type regedit. We're going to go ahead and launch this. Hit yes to the administrator control. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and click on local machine. And then we're going to go on to software. And from software, we're going to scroll down into policies. And from policies, we want to go to Microsoft. Then from Microsoft, we're going to jump into Windows. And then from Windows, we're going to go into data collection right here. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and right click and hit new, and we want a new DWORD 32-bit value. And the name of this one is going to be allow telemetry. And then once you got that, go ahead and hit enter. And then for allow telemetry, you want to make sure that the value is set to 0, which it should be by default if you've just created it. And then go ahead and hit OK. And then you can close this, and then the next step is to simply reboot your system. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, and I'll meet you back here when I'm done. Now, unfortunately, if you're running Windows 11 Home, you can't completely disable diagnostic and feedback. You will have to, at minimum, send the required diagnostic data. And unfortunately, I haven't found a way around this. However, some of the steps coming later in this video may help to stop this from actually sending to Microsoft. But the collection process will take place on a Windows 11 Home system, no matter what you do. So if your privacy is important to you and you want to be able to completely turn off this setting, it might be worth upgrading to Windows 11 Pro, which you can do by simply changing your product key to a Windows 11 Pro product key, which you can pick up from my sponsor. But with that said, let's jump back in the system and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so let's go back into our privacy settings here. So if we go into privacy and security, we're going to go ahead and check on diagnostic feedback. And as you can see, it now says some of these settings are managed by your organization and diagnostic data is completely off. So like I said, if you're running Pro, you can definitely disable all diagnostic data. And if you're running Home, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do there. But from the next step, if we click on privacy and security, we're going to go down to search permissions now. And from here, go ahead and disable Microsoft account, which honestly you shouldn't be using anyway. And you can also uncheck your work and school account. And then for search history, you can go ahead and check that. And you can clear the device search history right here. Then you can also scroll down and turn off the search highlights. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and go back into privacy and security. And then at this point, these are all your individual app permissions. Now, what you can do here is you can go into, we're going to go into each one individually. So we'll go into location, camera, microphone, and etc. But on this one right here, if we go into location, these are all the different apps that are currently allowed to use your location data. Now, if you don't want any apps to be able to see your location, you can just simply turn off location services completely, and then you don't have to worry about it. However, if you do want some applications to have access to your location, then you'll need to have this turned on, but you can go through and you can select individual applications to turn that off for individually. Like for instance, let's say I want my location to be available to Maps, but I don't want it to be available to Edge or Skype. You can turn it off just like that. Or like I said, you can just disable it altogether. And then the same thing, if we go back into privacy here and we click on camera, these are all of the applications that have access to your camera. Now, if you don't have a camera, then this really doesn't matter. But if you do and you don't want any apps having access to it, you can flip it off just like that. But in a lot of cases, some applications do need access to your camera, like the camera app, for instance, or even Microsoft Teams. If you use any kind of video conferencing app, you'll need to leave this turned on, but just make sure to give access to your camera only to the apps that you want it to have access to. Or alternatively, you can just turn it off altogether. And then back into privacy and security, if we go down into microphone, then this is the same thing. Just like before, you can choose which programs you want to allow access to. Now on mine, obviously OBS Studio is currently in use because, as you can see, I'm recording this right now so I can publish it to you. And I do use the microphone so I can help sync the video capture with my voice itself. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that enabled because it's useful for me. But you can go through and, for instance, why does the camera need access? Why does Feedback Hub need it? And you can also go through and like the snipping tool. That's an unusual one. Why does the snipping tool require access to my microphone? I don't know, but we can take it away just like that. And then as you can see, you can go through here and you can do the same thing for all of these different features from within Windows, and you can disable it. Like for instance, if you have call history, you can deny call history access to different programs. So go ahead and go through this and you can customize this to whatever your needs are, or you can just take it all away and not let anything use anything. So this is where all the basic settings part of the video ends. Moving forward, we're going to be doing more advanced tweaks to protect your privacy in Windows. But you know what? Remember, when it comes to what I'm showing you here, you don't have to follow every single one of my settings that I'm changing. You can tailor your own privacy to your own system however you want. So if I'm telling you to turn something off, but you use that thing, then don't turn it off. I'm just showing you everything you can do to protect your privacy on a Windows system, not everything that you should do. For everything you should do, that's unfortunately going to be up to you to decide. So let's jump back on the system and we'll move on. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do right here, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the start button and I'm going to search for Cyber CPU. And as you can see, the search results for Cyber CPU are right here in the side. However, maybe you don't want to do web searches from within Windows, and I can understand if you didn't. So for that, we're going to go ahead and run regedit again. hit yes to the user account control. And then from here, we want to go back up and we're going to select current user. Then we're going to go into software. Then from software, we're going to scroll down into policies. Then we're going to go into Microsoft. And finally, we're going to go into Windows. And then from here, you want to create the key Explorer. If you already have it, then that's fine. You don't need to create it. But if you don't have it, then go ahead and create it. And then from here, in the little white area, we're going to right click. We're going to hit New, DWORD 32-bit value. And we're going to write in Disable, Search, Box, Suggestions. Just like I've typed it right there. Make sure you do the capitalization and everything exactly like I did it here. Go ahead and hit enter. We're going to double click it to open it. We're going to change the value to 1 and then hit OK. And then from here, all you have to do is restart Explorer and it should enable that setting you just changed. So to do that, we're going to open our task manager. We're going to scroll down into Windows Explorer and we're going to hit restart. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and try the same search we did before. So if we search for cyber CPU, as you can see, it doesn't even attempt to search the internet. It just searches the computer and that's it. Now the next step you may or may not want to do. However, I'm going to be removing Edge completely because this is all about privacy and Edge does not protect your privacy. But first, before we do that, we need to actually have a browser. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start, type CMD. And we're going to install a browser that actually protects your privacy. And that one's going to be Brave. So to install that, you just open up a command prompt as administrator, type in winget space install, then type brave.brave, hit enter, and it'll go ahead and find that, hit yes to the agreement, and it'll go ahead and download and install Brave for you. Now it's going to take a minute for this to install, so we can talk about it for a second while it's installing. But essentially, Brave is a Chrome-based browser that's built to protect your privacy. The main purpose of Brave is to be a browser that respects your privacy over everything else. So if you're building a system and you're really concerned about privacy, then it's probably the browser you should be using instead of Edge. But while it goes ahead and installs, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead and we can move on to the next step. And I'll show you how to actually remove Edge so you don't have to worry about it again. So now that it's installed, let's go ahead and remove Edge. So we can go ahead and close this right here. And then to remove Edge, there's a program that I like to use for this right here. And this is another reason why it's probably nice not to use Chrome, because they've completely disabled the ability to turn on uBlock Origin. Now, I didn't mean to touch on this, but since I'm looking at it right now, I'm going to go ahead and look at it anyway. And as you can see, you can still turn it on sometimes. However, after you do this, eventually they won't let you do that anymore. So at some point, they block it completely so you can't enable it at all. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and use Brave. I didn't mean to do this in this video, but you know, sometimes things happen that you have to cope with. So what I'm going to look for now is we want to download a program called Revo Uninstaller. Go ahead and click here. We're going to click the little X right there, click on Downloads. And then from here, go down to the left-hand side, you can get the free version of Revo Uninstaller. Now, if you scroll down, you can also get the free portable version, and that's the one that I typically recommend. So if you click on that, we're gonna go ahead and download it. Then once it downloads, we can open it up in our download folder. I'm gonna go ahead and extract this right here. And we can close our browser there. And from here, we can run Revo Uninstaller. That's gonna ask you for administrator permissions and it'll launch the program. And from here, all you gotta do is click on Edge and click on Uninstall. Now, it's gonna give you a warning saying removing this product may cause some Windows features or other software not to work properly. And this is true. However, it's still worth removing either way. And we'll go ahead and talk about some of those features after it's done. And then once you get to this screen, go ahead and hit scan. And we're just going to do a moderate scan here, but essentially what this is going to do is it's going to look for all the files and registry settings related to any specific program. And as you can see here, these are the registry items. We can go ahead and hit select all and hit delete. hit yes. And now sometimes it can't delete everything. Like these are all the files right here. Some of these files may be protected because the application's currently running. So if we hit select all and hit delete, as you can see right now we have 2,780 files. So we're gonna go ahead and let it delete all those. And as you'll notice, it won't actually delete every single file because like I said, some of them are protected and it won't delete them until Windows reboots. But once it does, they'll be gone for good. Okay, so as we can see here, we're gonna go ahead and hit OK. And you can see we still have 46 files remaining with 13 folders. However, these will be deleted automatically the next time the system starts. So if we hit finish now, close this, as you'll see, we no longer have Microsoft Edge. Now, when it comes to removing Microsoft Edge, this is definitely optional because just like the warning said in Revo Uninstaller, removing Edge will break some functionality within Windows. I mean, realistically, it won't make Windows not boot or anything like that. But since Microsoft does not honor your default browser settings, they can have certain functions within Windows that are hard-coded to Microsoft Edge. And those functions simply won't work anymore. In fact, a good example of this would be the search results in the start menu that we just disabled in the last step. If you decided to leave those enabled, you won't be able to click on any of the results because they're hard-coded to open from within Edge. But if that's not important to you, then go ahead and uninstall it. Also, if you're concerned about privacy, then Brave is probably the best browser to use. It's based on Chromium, so it's essentially the Chrome browser, but it's written specifically to prioritize privacy. Unlike Chrome, which definitely was not written to prioritize privacy. And as you can see, they don't even let you use ad blockers anymore. And also, you can still use the Brave browser even if you decide not to uninstall Edge. Now, let's jump back into it. Okay, so we're all done here. We can go ahead and close that. Now, this next step is essentially just going to be removing garbage apps from within Windows. Like Outlook, we can go ahead and uninstall that. Microsoft Office 360 or Microsoft 365 Copilot, we can uninstall that. And essentially we can go through and just uninstall all of this garbage. Now, most of this is going to be kind of more on the lines of debloating than it is on privacy. However, I kind of would consider this to be somewhat related to privacy, you know, getting rid of apps that you didn't ask to install in the first place. So we can go ahead and go through, and there's actually a lot more than these than I thought. In fact, I'm still going at it. I thought I'd be able to talk long enough to be able to remove them all, but apparently I'm gonna have to stall for a little bit while I remove them. But as you can see, there was quite a few. Now, if we go into all, you can also see that there's more in the all menu, like Copilot. That's one that I typically like to uninstall. And then you can kind of scroll through here and just find the stuff that you just aren't gonna use, and then go ahead and get rid of it, and everything should work okay. The nice thing about this is if Windows allows you to uninstall, then it's not going to hurt your system by uninstalling it. And there are some things, like for instance, Windows Security, that there is no way to uninstall it. If you wanted to uninstall it, you'd have to do that manually. And then also there's one more that I would recommend also, but you can't do it from within the Start button. But if you go into Control Panel and go into the old Uninstall a Program and then find right here, oh, it looks like I've already gotten rid of it. You may have OneDrive in yours. If you do, you can go into Add and Remove Programs, select it, and then just hit Uninstall, and it'll uninstall OneDrive. Now, with the next step, we're going to have to go ahead and launch Task Scheduler. Right here. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and make this just a little bit easier to see by increasing the size of the window. We're going to go into the Task Scheduler library. We're going to Microsoft, and then from here we want to go into Windows. And there's lots of different tasks you have right here. However, we're only interested in a couple of folders. The first one is going to be Application Experience. Now, these you can either decide to disable these or you can decide to delete them completely. So I'm going to go ahead and disable these right here, just by going through the list, right-clicking and hitting disable. Now, as you can see, I don't have permission to disable that one. Well, in that case, well, we'll just delete it then. And then we'll go ahead and disable it. Now, I don't know for sure if this is true or not. However, I kind of have my suspicions that if you disable these tasks completely, then they'll simply get added back in next feature updates that come later. But if you disable them, I kind of have a feeling that the chances of them not running again are more likely. So I like to disable them if I have the ability. If I don't, then I just delete them. And then the next folder we're going to look for down here is going to be Customer Experience Improvement Program. There's going to be a couple of tasks in here that we're going to go ahead and disable too, just like that. And then from there, we can go ahead and close this, and we're going to launch our services snap-in. Just by typing services, and go ahead and click that right there. And from here, there's just one service that we want to disable, and that's going to be called the Connected User Experience and Telemetry. So we're going to scroll down until you see Connected User Experience and Telemetry right here. We're going to double click. We're going to hit Disabled from the menu here and then push Stop. And that should stop the service. Now, the next section we're going to get into is blocking Microsoft's telemetry servers themselves. In the last video we did on this topic, I showed you how to do this by using the Windows host file to block Microsoft's telemetry. Unfortunately, that doesn't work anymore. In fact, it may have never worked because Microsoft hard codes the IP addresses for their telemetry servers into Windows itself. So most of the time, it doesn't even use the host file. It just ignores it. So as an alternative, we need to use the Windows firewall to block these telemetry servers. Unfortunately, there's a lot of IP addresses we need to block, and it's way more than I'm willing to add manually. So for that, I found a cool little program that automatically adds the firewall rules to block Microsoft's telemetry servers. Unfortunately though, the app hasn't been updated in 3 years, so the block list may or may not be as updated as I'd like it to be, but it's definitely better than nothing. So let's jump back on the system and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so for this, we're gonna go ahead and close our window here for services. We're gonna open up Brave again. And we can close that window. I'm not sure why that opened up. But from here, I want to search for a program called Windows Spy Blocker. And this is going to be on GitHub right here. We're going to click on that. And this is the program. And like I said, it's been 3 years since this thing has been updated. But like I said, 3 years is, at least we're going to block the majority of telemetry servers. Chances are a lot of them probably haven't changed much since then, but it might be a good idea to maybe send this guy a thank you right here, and maybe it'll convince him to jump back into it and maybe update this program. But to install it, we're going to click on Latest. We're going to scroll down and we're going to click on this executable right here. And it's going to take a second to download, but once it does, we can go ahead and open it in our downloads folder right here. Go ahead and close Brave. And then from this point, all you got to do is just run the program. Now, the first time you run the program, it's going to create a couple of folders right here. And these are essentially going to be its logs and the different temporary files that it needs to run. And then from here, all we want to do is we want to select telemetry. So it's number 1 and hit enter. And then from here, we're wanting to install firewall rules. So we're going to hit number 1 again. And then right here, it gives us a couple of different rules. We can actually display our current firewall rules. So if you click on that, obviously it shows nothing. We can remove the rules. So if for whatever reason we do this and it breaks some functionality within Windows, we can remove these rules later on if we wanted to. But since we haven't added them yet, the first thing that we're going to need to do is actually add them. So that's number 1 right here. So by clicking 1, it's going to go ahead and add all of the known IP addresses, at least the IP addresses that were known 3 years ago, to block from our firewall itself. And by adding it to the firewall and not through the host file, it doesn't matter if Microsoft hard codes these IP addresses in because they're blocked straight from the firewall. So like I said before, you don't have to follow every single step of this guide. I'm just showing you all of the settings that you have available to you. Many of these settings, I don't even change myself on my own personal systems. So this guide isn't just a one-size-fits-all guide. You can pick the steps that you want to follow and ignore the ones that you don't. That way you can tailor your own level of privacy any way you want. But with that said, there is some telemetry from within Windows that is simply necessary for Windows to function properly. Like Windows Update, for instance. Microsoft needs telemetry from Windows in order to know what updates the system needs. And I do not, under any circumstance, recommend disabling Windows Update. Also, Microsoft has been known in the past to change some of these settings back after installing some updates, but I haven't seen that happen in quite a while. Typically, it's build updates. Also, if I missed anything in this video, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. And I know we should all switch to Linux, whatever. But with that said, if it's not just privacy you're concerned about, but you also want to remove all the AI from Windows, then check out this video where I go through and show you how to strip all the AI from Windows 11. As always, you guys have a great day.